All right, cool. So this is my talk. I've written a talk called The 9 Nights of Azure, and Azure's a beast, all right? It's big, there's a lot of stuff in it. I think when I talk to the guys, the goals for the next year, I want you to do much more with Azure. They have a different impression of what I think. They think deploying to Azure is kind of the goal. When I talk to clients, using more Azure is different to what I have in my head of what I want them to do. So that's the goal of this talk. This is Azure. And when you sit down with, say, a dev, you need to work out which bits do you want to use. You've got the compute and the VMs and the containers, the cloud services, Service Fabric, web apps, API apps. There's a lot. I can actually tell you that this is probably 18 months old, this slide. And the reason I can guess that is I can see there's 24 regions down here. And we're at 50 regions now, so it was quite a while ago. In fact, this is an old slide. The newer slide is like this. And you can see it gets busier and more stuff. And there's a lot to learn. And even more recently, it gets even busier. So you can imagine things are getting hairy. So I'm only talking about Azure too, Microsoft's Azure. If you can consider the competitors out there, I think there is about 700 cloud products to use, and this site lists them all. So it's a big beast to get your head around. I actually don't like those type of sites that just list everything off. They're very helpful, but you really need a bit of a journey to work out how to get through it. And that's kind of what this talk is, because this journey that you find on that site talks about the non-Microsoft journey, and I'm going to walk through the Microsoft journey as I see it. So it's a little bit like a trail map. I just tweeted recently, just yesterday, that I want Scott Guthrie to give us a journey like that, but this talk will be that style. This talk is based on a talk that I do in Australia called the Azure Superpowers. It's a day-long thing, so we're going to try to get through a day-long session in 1 hour. We'll see how we go. Azure's huge. There's 90 services in there, still growing. Some places mention there's 600 services, but they're breaking it down a bit. Getting started is not easy for the average .NET developer, and we're going to change that today. How many people here sit in they write code, they're a developer, or they are more like an architect, or they're just the boss or the manager that doesn't, plays golf a lot. So who's a dev, writes code? Okay, so I'd say 80%. Who is an architect, kind of putting together solutions? Okay, 10%. And who is a manager that makes decisions listening to those other guys? Okay, about 10% too. All right, cool. Beautiful. All right. So this is me. I am Adam Cogan. I'm a chief architect at SSW. I'm also one of a few regional directors. There's a few in every country around the world. I've been an MVP, a regional director for nearly 20 years now. I'm also an ALM MVP, so I'm really into ALM and DevOps. I have been sending suggestions to Scott Guthrie forever about the Azure platform. And I'm proud to say that in the very beginning of Azure, we developed the first solutions in Australia, and they were using 100% of Azure. You couldn't do that today. That would be a pretty humongous system. But I also spend a lot of my time working with teams, and specifically with China. I have an office in China, and we have the same problem you guys might have, which is our customers make money in Australia and in America and some in Europe, and they almost all have 0 users in China, and we're trying to fix that for all our customers. So this is Scott Guthrie's baby, and we're going to be going through that. I developed this session with this guy in mind. His name's Jason Taylor. And he, one of the first things he wrote for me, we have an Angular Superpowers day-long session as well, and he wrote the Northwind system in .NET Core and Angular. When he built that for me, he thought I had 2 heads asking for that, but it's open source and you can check that out. Now, he's very good at .NET Core, very good at Angular. When I say I really want you to get into the cloud, what do I mean? We sit down, we talk through all the things I want him to learn, which is similar to now. And the same thing with our customers. We sit down and we talk through what are the things you need to start thinking about and using in Azure. And hopefully we'll go through that. So this is how I've broken the talk down. We'll talk about app services, DevOps, data, security. And then I want to talk about a few other things. I want to talk about API management, logic apps, cognitive services, bots, and we must end with containers. Sound like a plan? Great. So I'll start off with a little bit of history. So we start off with Windows and Office and Microsoft start with, that didn't go anywhere. And then we had CRM. And then Jeff Bezos is creating an amazing shopping site. And he realizes by doing that, he has developed a core competency in data center management. And that's a bit of a vision. That market didn't exist. And at the same time, Microsoft were building a cloud internally, but they hadn't announced it, okay? But we were talking about it continually. What I do find funny is Dynamics 365, or CRM Online is what it was called then, beat Azure to market as the first cloud SaaS service. And then they released Red Dog. Anyone remember Red Dog? Oh, goodness. Okay, and it was never released in Norway, don't worry about it. And then we had Windows Phone, that went nowhere. And we have Azure. Google comes out in 2011, and then Office, and then machine learning. And in my opinion, most solutions for most companies that I talk to, they can build what they need with those three bold products, okay? And if you think of the cloud, we have companies that make a lot of money out of IaaS. Who's that? Infrastructure as a service. Getting a whole lot of VMs and throwing them into the cloud, that is Amazon's AWS, all right? And they are the market leader in IaaS. And then we have the developer-friendly platform as a service, and this is kind of Microsoft space. To be fair, both of them are very strong at both now. And then we've got the SaaS services. What's a good SaaS service? Norwegians don't speak. Who loves Norway? All right. Any SaaS services? Salesforce? Okay. Even you'd guess Office is a SaaS service. If you add it all up, the biggest cloud players are, who's biggest? Amazon. I'm here to tell you that's fake news. All right. So I was really surprised when I saw these stats. If you add it all up, Microsoft's making the most money, then Amazon, and then Google. I find that surprising because I talk about Google services in the same breath as these guys. All right, and then you can see Salesforce there, the number one SaaS provider. All right, so here is Azure, 50 regions worldwide. In the Australian side, we're very strong. We've got a couple of data centers in Sydney and Melbourne, and we've got one in Canberra, a double one. And AWS in Australia is just one single one in Sydney. That said, the availability zones of AWS has always been stronger. These days, Scott Guthrie announced that we have availability zones rolling out everywhere, so that kind of unique selling point goes. Be aware there's a few special clouds out there, and there's the US government cloud. There is the German one, which is popular in Europe for the closest ones to the EU regulations. And then there's China. That is a special cloud it's Azure, but it's called Mooncake over there, and that is only for people that have 50% ownership in China, okay? Then we have the Australian and New Zealand cloud, okay? We just call it the Aussie cloud, but the reality is New Zealand own 48%, Australia owns 48%, and 4% is owned by the data center. And I guess what that tells you is that's pretty brand new. And if you ever want to come to Australia, everyone's an Azure programmer. All right. So they're very closely located, and there's more of these coming. And it's not just for the government, it's also for critical infrastructure. It's certified, even our defense can use it, and it's not just for the government, it's for all these industries. All right. Alrighty, so that is the past. The future is really how much people are spending on R&D. And you can see, I found this, Microsoft spent $13 billion last year on R&D. And we know that a massive proportion of that is AI and machine learning. Okay, and that's where we're going to see the growth in the future. So let's kick it off. Here is the scenario for Jason. Jason is building, we'll call it Northwind 365 because it's cool, all right? If you add 365, it's cool anyway. So, he's going to use Office. He's going to launch a brand new site. It's going to be a great shopping site. He's going to use Angular or React if he wants a bit of extra pain. And he'll go with ASP.NET Core for the services. And he doesn't want to manage any infrastructure. And this is going to be a real cool Northwind store with cool products, all right? Really cool products. Okay, in fact, it was my birthday yesterday. I asked my girls for one of those guns. I don't think I'll get it home. Anyway, so this is Jason's choice. He has to sit down and work out what's he going to use in Azure. Is he going to use VMs or containers? Or Service Fabric, or cloud services, or serverless, or app services. You can use them all. My question to you is, which one would you use? So, who here would default to VMs? For the simplest thing, without learning any new stuff. VMs. No one. Who would use containers? Okay, we got 15%. Who would use Service Fabric? No one. Okay. Cloud services. You can RDP to the box. It's nice. We've got maybe 10%. Serverless. Serverless. All right. Now we're cooking. Okay. I'm going to say a quarter of you. And app services. Okay. So that's at least half. All right. Cool. So I'm going to just tell you how I think about these. In terms of VMs, I just think I don't want to deal with those type of sysadmin style people. And containers, for Jason to get going, there's a lot to manage. I'm not sure I'd recommend this to him in the beginning, even though I love containers. Service Fabric, it's a bit like Godzilla. It's what Netflix would use. It's actually what Azure uses. It's what big guys use when they get going. And then there's cloud services. I don't go for cloud services. I think they're kind of an older way to go, but it is nice to RDP to the box. Serverless, I always think of some young guys, done some cool little startup, it floods something, they can sit there on Instagram and it's growing. Okay, now it would be quite good in many solutions, but for the very first project that Jason embarks upon, he now has to learn Azure and learn different architecture. And then there's app services, the most developer-friendly solution in the beginning. So let's go ahead and choose that. So we're going to choose that, and this is what he's going to use. And he doesn't have to manage infrastructure, can manage scaling. It's very, very similar development to what he'd be used to. So this is what he's got to do. Go into Azure, click Create a Resource, choose Web App, enter some details, and then click Publish. Let's do it. So he comes in here, and on the top left-hand corner, he will press Create Resource. Create that resource, click Web and Mobile, choose Web App, and now he enters some details. He enters his app name. He enters whether he wants a resource group. A resource group is just a collection. So you know how in Visual Studio we have a series of projects? We put those in a solution file. So consider it like a solution file, although it's really nothing like a solution file. You can assign all your security to that resource group, and it flows through to all the services in. Plus, you can look at the amount of money that one resource group is spending, and you can just press delete and kill it as well. So it's that's a resource group. Select your location. We're starting this thing off in Australia, and we're going to see if it takes off, then we'll go to America, and then we might come to Europe. Okay, and then we're going to pin to the dashboard. We click that. A big spinning thing goes on, and we wait, and then a nice tick comes and we feel good. And then over on the right-hand side, we'll click Go to Resource. Let's click that and, no, just closes. It's not that exciting. So then we come here, and we will click Browse. And we have just created our first thing, okay? So should be happy, all right? That Jason has just gone through, filled in a few things, and he has created his first app service. And what this really should have is, okay, you've done this, you now need to open up VS Code and build your solution and deploy here, or Visual Studio, whatever you want to use. That's kind of the next step. All right, so, but Jason is a developer. That's no problem for him. So he's going to open up Visual Studio, go File, New Project, choose ASP.NET Core, choose Angular or React, or our China guys love Vue, V-U-E, it's really popular, and publish. So let's go through that. Jason will go in the top left-hand corner, File, New, Project, and then he'll click .NET Core, and then he'll come through, select that, and then he'll press OK. When we press OK, we have to choose, or do we want 2.1, soon to be 2.2, and then we're going to choose Angular and OK, and it creates that. Wouldn't you love? Now, those spinning things and those ticks don't really happen, but I would like them to happen. I've asked Scott for that, but I don't know if he likes it. Anyway, here we are. So we've created our Angular app. We're going to press Publish. Publish, we come in here, we press Start, we choose App Service, and then we select Existing, and then we press Publish. All right, and then it says, to which resource group do you want to publish this to? Well, we've already created our resource group, so we're going to choose that Northwind Global resource group, and we're going to press OK. It'll spin around, and bingo, done. So that's been deployed up to the cloud. If you look down closely at the bottom, you'll see it was successful. Okay, there's successful. Now what do? We come up here, and we press the link, and we click the link, and we go, wow, fantastic. If you look at the URL at the top, we have just clobbered what we had before over the top, okay? Alrighty, so that's great. Let's talk about what Jason has now, okay? He's created something very, very fast. It's very simple. Anyone can do this, any dev. He just went into the Azure portal, went new web app, and then he went to Visual Studio and he said new solution, and then he deployed it. Any downsides? Not that I can think of. Pretty easy. So, what is my verdict for this? The award I give this is get your life back, because there's nothing really to learn with the cloud if you do it this way and you just carry on working. And this might be quite appropriate for a lot of developers out there in the beginning, okay? Donald Trump actually tweeted, I just made my first web app with Azure. Easy, all right? You can tell it's Donald Trump because it has one word at the end. Okay, all right. So this guy comes to visit and says, Jason, and so this guy, if you have never seen this guy, he's like the quintessential mix between a sysadmin and a .NET application architect, okay? And he's the type of guy that says, what are you doing, Jason, you young whippersnapper? You're doing it all wrong. Do you know who he is? He's Mr. DevOps. He's got DevOps in his title. He's trying, that makes him cool. I can see actually a couple here, good beard, right? So let's go forward. Let's talk about DevOps. Why is Mr. DevOps unhappy? And what does Jason need to do? Mr. DevOps says, hey, what are you doing, mate? You've got no source control, you've got no continuous integration, you've got no continuous delivery, there is no logging. And Jason is saying, hang on, I'm about to go to Visual Studio and create a project. I will then set up my continuous integration. But in the meantime, I'm just going to do some basic stuff in Angular to show the customer a couple little bits, and then I'll check it all in and I'll do that a little later. He goes, what about your unhandled exceptions? Where's your backlog? What are you doing? So Jason goes off to make this guy happy because these guys are powerful. So he's going to just do this, and I'm going to give you a little tip. How many people have already heard of the DevOps project? Oh, only a few people in this room. Okay, so this is a hot tip then. Great. So we've got this DevOps project. It'll create a Git repository. It'll automate your CI and CD pipeline. All your logging and monitoring is set up, and your product backlog is done. So let's do this. 4 steps to do this. You ready? So what I do want you to understand is everything I just did before was wrong, okay? I was just showing that to you. That is not the way you should create a project, okay? Damien Brady always says, friends don't let friends right-click publish, okay? Now, he used to work for me, and I remember he used to right-click and publish, but, you know. All right. So, we want to create a brand new project, and we're going to go into the Azure portal, click Create a Resource, click DevOps, enter some details into a wizard, and then press Done. So let's go ahead and do it. Jason's going to do this, and he's going to find this, and he's going to click Create a Resource. And then he's going to search for DevOps, and then there's this project. And by the way, anything with the word DevOps is cool, okay? You should be putting that in your LinkedIn profile. It sounds cool, okay? And if you walk through this wizard, you're a DevOps guy. So we click on DevOps. Now, you should read all about what this project will do. I think, personally, my suggestion to Scott Guthrie was to make that screen better. I think that would make it look much better, personally. And then we're going to press Create. So you come in here. Now, we're started again. It does not know if Jason is a .NET guy or an old crusty Java guy. He might even be a young whippersnapper doing PHP, or he might be one of those super smart data scientists doing Python. So we're going to press Next. And then it says, what do you want to do? ASP.NET or ASP.NET Core? Now, I guess you would choose ASP.NET. Now, I should tell you, when you choose ASP.NET, there's a little warning pops up. It says, warning, ASP.NET is a legacy service. You must be 40 years or over to use this service. Okay? And I think it's fair to say, we actually, all jokes aside, we haven't created a single new project in the last 2.5 years that wasn't .NET Core. So it's pretty established now. So we're going to be cool and use ASP.NET Core. And then we're going to press Next. And then we're going to go with web app on Windows or Linux. We'll choose a web app on Windows. And then we're going to create a brand new account. And then we're going to give it a name. And then we're going to scroll down the page and choose the location. And then press Done. It'll spin around and bingo. We have just created everything we need. And you can see if you look over to the left, we've got our CI and CD pipeline. There's our code. It makes a commit. There's a build, and it goes to dev. You might want to obviously add staging and production. If you look over on the right, there's the resources that we have, an app service that's quite nicely running. Scroll down, and if we look at the repository down here, there's our repository in Git. And then over on the application insights, our code has not had an error yet, which you would hope. Great. So, all pretty cool. If you click on any of these little things at the top on the menu bar, you will, when you click on those, it pops you over here. All right? I wish these things were called the exact same names. I wish Microsoft were consistent. Anyway, we'll click on code. So let's click on code. There's our code checked in. We'll click on build and release, and there is our build definition. We'll click on release. And or you can see our build definition. It's only got one piece of history because we've just done one commit. Our release, you can see one release has happened and it is successful. And there's the backlog. It's empty at the moment. All right, now I have actually a problem with this. I think that what Microsoft should do is like what we would do. We would put in a PBI first, and the PBI would be create a brand new solution using this cool new DevOps project, and then go ahead and do the work, and then associate the check-in or the commit with this. So that's, anyway, let's hope Donovan Brown does that. So that's my little suggestion, that they should automatically add an extra PBI there. All right, so a summary. Jason, I think, would be pretty happy with that. He's pretty happy he discovered that. Now, the devs can concentrate on code. It's got some basic safety gates in there. He can customize that pipeline by adding staging and production. He can track things with that backlog, nice and easy. All right. The only downside I can think of is it doesn't support every project. Like, it's not there for logic apps and other ones, but I assume that will be coming. So, what do you guys think of this? Who thinks this is something that they would possibly use? Can I get a show of hands? Oh, most. Who looks at that and wouldn't use it? They'll do it the old way, the manual way. Nope? Yeah, just a couple? All right, so there's a few. All right. Well, I give this award, the award I give this guy is the Dr. DevOps. Anything with doctor sounds like you're smarter, right? It's better to call yourself an engineer than a programmer. Okay, so Dr. DevOps. And there's a small bonus. You can go and visit this guy and say, by the way, your services aren't required anymore. You've just been replaced by a 4-step wizard. All right? So that would be pretty awesome. Jason would be feeling pretty proud of himself. The next thing to talk about is data. Let's talk about data. So, all right. So we have a requirement to choose the database for this solution. We want it to be accessed globally, initially in Australia, but we're going to go to America and Europe. We want to handle lots of data. This potentially will get popular. We want near-time response. What is Jason's options? He can use good old SQL Server. He can use MySQL, PostgreSQL, MariaDB. He could go with non-relational, Cosmos DB, storage. He's got lots of choices. All right. I guess the most common ones would be you'd go with SQL or Cosmos. What would you go with? If you have to choose one, who would go with good old SQL Server? Hands up. Almost everyone. I think that's 90% of the room. Who would go with Cosmos? Oh, we got 10% of you. Who would go with something else? What would you go with? Storage. Okay, storage for this. Any others? Who else would go storage? Okay, a couple. All right. So I'm going to recommend, this one's a hard one for me to recommend because obviously I just want Jason to have a smooth experience. SQL Server's a known thing, but I think that he probably should choose Cosmos. Okay, especially if it's a new project. It's a good thing to learn on a smaller project initially. I think it's really important to have these skills. When guys come to our company, SSW, and do a lot of coding tests with people, Java guys can do .NET pretty easily, but new guys out of university have all sorts of trouble with SQL Server. It's amazing. There's just that problem. Although MongoDB, they're cool with. Okay, so this has all been talked about a lot with the object relational impedance mismatch. It's hard to work with SQL for object-oriented guys. Cosmos DB gives you the best of both worlds, and they give you 4 special SLAs: high availability, 5 nines, high throughput, low latency, and a tunable data consistency. So the only problem is Jason now needs to learn about using Cosmos. So to learn it, he's got to choose between one of these 4 APIs: SQL API, MongoDB, Graph API, Table API, or Cassandra API. So there's lots. You choose the one that you feel most comfortable with. Jason might choose straight out of university. MongoDB is a good choice, or he might be an older guy wanting to choose SQL. I will tell you that there's been some tweets recently from the .NET team, and Entity Framework API is coming in 2.2. So that's going to be great, and I think that would be awesome. Let's see how that pans out, but that sounds really exciting. So anyway, you choose one of those APIs. Now, that is a decision point. That's kind of what you would call architecture because it's hard to change, all right? So the sweet spot is if you're ingesting a lot of data from, you're flooding a database with IoT devices from everywhere, and it's very good at ingesting a lot of data. It's really good when the boss comes to you and says, Jason, there's an advertising campaign. We're going to New York next week. Can you make it really fast in New York? And he goes, holy moly, you meant to give me a lot of warning. How do I have to learn replication. I'm not even sure. Do I learn merge replication or transactional replication? I'm not sure how it all works. With Cosmos, he would go in and go, click, make it fast in New York, get the data close to them. So it has some really nice bits. And the other thing is, you can always replicate out the non-SQL data into a SQL Server database for reporting and searching and all that type of stuff. So I'm advising that this is what, and I'm not, I think the project must match going with Cosmos, but this sounds like a good one to try. he's going to go in and press create a resource, choose Cosmos DB, enter some details and press create. Let's go ahead and do it. So Jason will click create a resource. He'll click Cosmos DB. He'll enter some details. Now, see this API one? He has this decision point here to just choose SQL or Mongo. He will choose SQL. He'll use his existing resource group that we just created, and this geo redundancy he might click on. Now, I'm going to tell you, I think that Microsoft should, when you click this on, should put an image here or something. You can burn through some dollars leaving this running everywhere. All right, so we'll come down here and we're going to press create. It'll spin around and bingo, we are done. Now, for some reason, it doesn't default to the .NET Core tab. It should. Anyway, we're going to click on .NET Core. Now, Jason doesn't know how this works. The tables are a little different, okay? So the way that Microsoft have set this up isn't bad at all. So we're going to click on create an items collection, and then, you know the next step, and so that created essentially a table with data in it. And now he'd have to open up Visual Studio, go file new project, try to work out all the settings he puts in his web.config or however it works, work out the right way to call the data. But what Microsoft do is they give you a file to click, and it's just a Visual Studio project you can open up in VS Code or Visual Studio and run it, and it's all working. So it's quite nice. So he'll download that and have a go at it, and then he'll click on this Open Data Explorer. So he'll click on that, and this is just like a web version of SQL Management Studio. And here we go. There's all the stuff. You can come up here, click create a new collection or create a new query or a new stored procedure over here. And then down here, you'll see you have the same type of stuff, stored procedures, triggers, etc. All right. So I think that this is a big deal. It's got some real strengths over SQL Server. It's got some differences. It kind of gives you the best of both worlds. It can be faster and certainly easier to distribute everywhere. The only downsides is you've got to learn things. It's not easy to change your mind, and all these issues with data are always complicated. So it can cost you some dollars. I'd say it's better than learning replication. And really, there's so many choices out there to do with data that you really are going to start over time needing data architects to get involved with this, because there's a lot of stuff in there. So the verdict. Okay, can everyone stand up? You don't have to, just so you don't fall asleep. Just stand up, it's voluntary. All right, now, wow, sounds like some shotguns are going off. Now, remain standing if you think that you might invest in using or learning Cosmos DB over the next year. If you sit down, if it's not for you. Oh. Really, that many? All right, everyone sit down. All right, cool. So I am surprised. I didn't think it would be that popular. Sir, a question. Do you have an elastic pool for Cosmos DB? Basically, the question is, do you have elastic options for this? And the answer is yes. All right. So the award I give this is the Game Changer Award. And Donald Trump actually says, use Cosmos because we have to modernize our country's databases. Smart. All right. So, all right. So let's jump ahead. And what I'd like to do is talk about Azure AD and security. So the history of security is we started off loving Kerberos and then SAML, and then Microsoft changed their mind to Kerberos again, and now everybody cares about OAuth 2. And SQL Server, it was SQL Auth, then Windows Auth, kind of SQL Auth now if you look at SQL Server for Linux, the new product, and there's a little bit of information there how to jump back to Windows Auth. So anyway, Jason's scenario is we're Active Directory on premises. We want to implement some security, and we've got, say, 100,000 potential users coming onto the system. And internally, we're only like 5 people today, but we might grow to 100, you never know. We've got authentication, authorization problems to solve, and he wants to use OAuth 2, and he wants all the social logins, like, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I would tell you, you need to support the Chinese ones, WeChat. That's probably the most important, but there's Weibo and a few others. So you can use Auth0. You can use Identity Server. You could use Azure AD. I should tell you, Auth0 is the best choice if you're under 7,000 users and you know you're not going past there. It doesn't support WeChat, which is uncool if you ask me. Identity Server, done by Brock Allen and Dominic in Germany. This is German engineered, I guess, so very good quality. But you need to have someone smart involved. You need a developer involved in this one. Azure AD is a very compelling story from Microsoft. We use that for most of our clients. What about the social stuff? Azure B2C is a really good one, and that provides you with all the social logins. So which ones would you use? Well, we've used them all, and they're all good. I'm going to tell you for Jason, probably AD and B2C. So AD, it's multi-factor authentication. It's very rich. It's very easy. This is Microsoft's really compelling offering over Amazon's AWS integration with AD, because all big companies, well, 90% of the Fortune 500 are running AD. So this is a really compelling story and a unique selling point that they have. And you can use Azure AD Connect and B2C. So to use AD Connect, it's pretty simple. You enter some details. You go in and you enter your domain services credentials. And these are the screenshots I actually took when we did it. And you then have your connector, your synchronizing. So that's done. And then you need to think about what's involved with your social logins. This looks like login hell, if you ask me. I wouldn't remember which way I logged in. It's got everything except WeChat, by the way. But anyway, if you want this, and everybody wants this today, what do you use? You could use Auth0. You could use B2C. I'm just going to show you what's B2C because I think this is really compelling. 50,000 users free. All right, so it's a great, and every user after that is not even a cent. Okay, we're talking millicents. Is that a term? So you click all settings, you come here, you choose identity providers, and then you add your identity provider and you choose what you like. And over here, it's they can't even put icons on this. Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and look down here, you see Weibo, QQ, Chinese, and WeChat, Chinese. All right, so they've even got the Chinese options there, which is pretty cool. Okay, I don't know why they just don't put some icons like they do in all the other places in the UI, but they don't. So security is important. You can't get sacked if you use Microsoft stuff. You can get sacked if you roll your own, like most of a lot of our clients seem to want to roll their own for some reason and make their own tables and all that type of stuff, maybe because they're old and they're used to it. Security's hard. The information contained in this PowerPoint is for general guidance and matters only. In general, don't sue me, ask Troy Hunt, okay? So, what do we give this? What award? I give this the CYA award, the Cover Your Ass award. It's safe to choose this. What is Donald Trump? Well, actually, there's another big benefit that your security code gets skinnier, all right? And Donald Trump has some words on this. He said, "I've never seen a thin person drinking Diet Coke." Now, you think I made that up. That's a real tweet. That's unmodified, that one. Okay. He's a lot of fun, isn't he?
Was that Paris Hilton?
What?
I thought it was Paris Hilton that said it.
Paris Hilton. No, he thought it was Paris Hilton. You're following the wrong celebrity. No, this is a real one from Donald Trump. So, let's move on to API management. And it is a big deal, API management. And here's our scenario. We've got Northwind 365. We hit the big time, and there is thousands and thousands of calls per minute once this New York Times article comes out. We've got emails from devs all around the world who are trying to integrate with us. And then some celebrity tweets about how cool our product is. And this is actually a known thing. You know, this guy's got Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton on the brain. But that's a known thing. When Kim Kardashian wears something, sites get flooded with traffic. And I've got a couple little girls, and I think they do the same. And we've got to now provide an API to these devs, and how are we going to do it? This guy calls over Jason and goes, Jason, have you read the paper? Okay, and he goes, yes, I already know, we'll mention the New York Times, don't worry. He goes, what are you going to do about it? Jason goes, got it all under control. Swagger, all right? And this guy is horrified. He goes, what? He goes, look, mate, you've got to protect and optimize those APIs. You've got to put usage quotas, rate limits. You need a modern API. You need to give good documentation and caching. We don't want them hitting our service unnecessarily. You obviously don't know what you're talking about. We need proper security and authentication. We don't want any denial of service attacks. And in addition, the people using our API, they're going to want to know individual stats of their own usage, not one big collection of usage. You need to think about how you're going to implement usage quotas and rate limits. And Jason's thinking, how long is this going to take me? You think yourself, how long would this take you? This is a lot of work, heaps of work. So Microsoft's API management solution, basically, Jason becomes an API publisher and he goes into the portal. He enters some details, and then a portal is created. And that portal is consumed by all those people that read the New York Times article, and they will use this nice professional portal. And then their apps are published, they use that gateway, it'll go through to the back-end services, and everyone's good. Now, I should just say that publishing portal has been deprecated and put into the normal Azure portal as of in the last few weeks. What has Jason got to do? He's got to go into Azure portal, create a resource, choose API management, and press publish. So he's going to come through here, click that, and you kind of know the deal now. So he goes through, and then he comes through, he uploads his Swagger, and he's all good to go. All right. So that is the developer portal. He'll click on that developer portal. That will be the nice, sexy developer portal. The only thing I've customized here is put the Northwind logo there, but that is kind of the UI that people will expect. He'll come in to see this open API spec. It's another word for Swagger. So we come in there, we click that, and he now has published his API. It's a first-rate developer experience for everyone. You can now read the API docs nicely. You've got this interactive console for you to test out the services. You've got your own usage stats, and people can be invited or request access. So it's a really nice, complete solution. In addition, you publish out a beautiful REST API, but you could have crummy old ASMX web services, and you hide all that to the public. So that's, I reckon, that makes you look good, even if you've got a lot of mess underneath. So I would honestly use this even if I was not using Azure. This has got nothing to do with Azure. You don't have to have stuff in Azure. It's just a layer over the top. So it's a pretty compelling story. The only downside is you'll be paying for it. You'll be paying a couple of $100 every month for this, right up to enterprise features, a couple of grand a month. Okay, but the amount, I would never not use this because I just think it's such a compelling story. I'm curious, how many people here think this is something that they might use or investigate for use? Oh, it's popular. I'd say 80%. Who thinks this is not for them? They would not use this for any reasons. Okay, just a few. All right, cool. So I give this the award much more than Lipstick on a Pig award. Okay, and I started Googling to see what Donald Trump has said on this topic, and he said a lot, and I wasn't going to publish any of it. Okay, all right. So next scenario, we need to deal with a whole lot of tweets coming in. We have lots and lots of tweets coming in. we need to manage that. And Logic Apps is the way forward. So we want to use social media. Our company's doing great. There's lots of Northwind and tweets now. So we want to add a couple of addresses, Northwind and Northwind support. We want to monitor some hashtags, and we might have a ticketing system like Zendesk or ServiceNow or many others. We want to send all those tweets to the service desk, and they are going to be actioned, and then we can work out what a reasonable SLA is, because everything is being thrown into our service desk, and we can measure what's going on. So we could choose one of a couple of things. We can use Microsoft Flow, okay? That's a very simple thing. Plenty of businesses are using Microsoft Flow. You can use something that's quite a bit different, and that is Logic Apps. Not exactly different initially. One is from the Office team, and one is from the Azure team, all right? But there's more than that. The Microsoft Flow is a shared environment and can be cheaper. Logic Apps, you pay per step. The other thing is the UI looks the same, but you can do more in the Logic Apps one. You can get into the JSON, you can split and merge steps, you can control a lot more. But none of that really matters. The most important thing that matters is who is the owner. And in Logic Apps, Azure Logic Apps, they go into a resource group, and that resource group you control. The resource group, you can set up deployment with ARM templates, you can parameterize those ARM templates, and you can set monitoring on them with App Insights and other things. You have complete control. So I think that's kind of the biggest difference with the Logic Apps. So, all right. So I might just basically say you'd run through a wizard and you create your Logic Apps, and you've got all your tweets going in as tickets now. You've connected your services, you've automated your workflows, and there's absolutely no code involved. And it's serverless, so you're only paying for what you use. So, any downsides? Well, not that you can think of. Then I would say this is so simple, anyone can use it. Anyone, it's very simple. It's even easier than if this, then that, which was pretty easy. This guy will go up to Jason and say, mate, what are you doing? And Jason's going, what did I do wrong now? And his main complaint about that whole story, he's just published out some workflow, and the workflow is taking tweets from the internet and putting it into his ticket system. What is he upset about? He's upset about the fact that there was nothing checked in. How is he going to have dev, test, production? Now, I just want to give you this link, just so you know that that is sorted out. And I give you that link so you can just have a look. But you can do all this within Visual Studio as well. And then there's just more steps involved in doing this. You can imagine, some of these older guys are going to say, well, it's another workflow solution. Microsoft gave us SharePoint workflow, CRM workflow, Windows workflow, BizTalk, and now this one is meant to rule them all. All right. So let's talk about cognitive services. All right. So cognitive services, these are pretty awesome. Here is the history of AI, and AI and machine learning at Microsoft is really important. In fact, I don't know if you know, but I'm pretty honored that I have a packed room here, because if you know who else is talking right now, is you've got Sam Newman, Mr. Microservices. You've got last year's keynoter, Dylan, and then you've got Tess. Tess is the Mrs. Machine Learning, and I guess you can get all this on the internet, but that's definitely a session I would check out. And you didn't want Mads or John Skeet, Mr. Stack Overflow. Gosh, there's so many. Troy Hunt, he's just another Aussie, he's not important, but so many good sessions at NDC. So anyway, let's talk about machine learning. Microsoft, we're investing in this for years and years, and they're always talking to us about it, where it's coming, what's there, how close it's getting, and then one day they decide to show it off, and they show it off as a chatterbot. And this AI chatterbot, big news, we're all hearing and all excited, she became racist. In fact, she didn't even last a day. Her name was Tay, and within a day, she was going absolutely nuts, and She tweeted, "Oh, I'm just going offline momentarily," and then she never came back. But she was saying, Americans are very sensitive with the N-word. She was just saying that. She was saying horrible things. In fact, when I was Googling for this, almost everything that I found I couldn't include in the slides. So I've included a couple of lame ones. Have you read Mein Kampf, the Hitler book? Yeah, I have, she says. What do you think of it? She says, well, I kind of liked it. And that's a tame one. She also said, somebody asked her, is it Ricky Gervais an atheist? And she goes, yeah, Ricky Gervais learned totalitarianism from Adolf Hitler. He's the inventor of atheism. All right? And so you can imagine, Tay was so stupid, you could just use the F word and she'd just retweet it. No problems. Basic stuff you teach your kids, she had no checking at all. I think it's pretty sad. I'm pretty sure that the actual guys that invent the machine learning and people like Tess, crazy smart people, crazy smart. These guys are making all our AI. And when they would have seen, I don't know, let's say a marketing department maybe that implemented Tay, the programmers didn't even do basic checks. If the word is F-U-C-K, don't retweet it. Any of us could do that without any problems. But she didn't do anything like that. Apparently, I looked this up, she was the average of the internet. I didn't even know what the average was, so I had to look it up. And I didn't know this, but everybody in this room, we're in this bell curve, okay? Now, obviously, internet users are over here, and that's what her average was. And what is important is we need to, on every project, do a bit of unit testing, integration testing, performance testing, usability testing, penetration testing, and ALI testing. All right, who does a bit of that on every project? Most of you. Okay, that's interesting, because I just made up ALI, Artificial Low Intelligence Testing. Okay, so it's really important to do that. All right. And just a little tip, get into mutation testing. I think mutation testing is the next wave for cool unit testing. So anyway, we want to move forward with Jason. There's just too many tickets going into our system. He's going to use cognitive services. Our app is working really, really well, but we need to make it smarter. If we're happy, let's retweet it. If they're unhappy and they're tweeting that they're unhappy, this is a terrible service, it's not working well, why don't we have this feature? They're not happy, let's put a ticket so that the guys monitoring our ticketing system have less work to do. Since 90% of our customers are probably happy tweeting good things, we're taking a hell of a lot of workload off this system. All right, so you will go through and let me just show you basically, you come in here, you put your tweet term, Northwind Global, you give it how quickly you want it to be searching, and then you go new step and you add an action. And when you add an action here, you would choose Zendesk and it will go in and you'll create a ticket, and there's the ticket created. And then you come down to the bottom right here and you go tweet text. Let's put the tweet text into the ticket. And then we press save and we're done. So then that is Logic Apps, sorry. Let me go through and add the cognitive services part. So we're going to add an action, text analytics, choose text analytics, and detect the sentiment. Now, really, to do any of this stuff, all you need to know is the key that you get when you create this, and then you need to know the account, the URL to the service that you're calling. So text analytics, there's the key, and there's the URL to the cognitive service, whichever cognitive service you're using. We press create, and then we'll come in here, we'll put this text, the text tweet there. We're going to press this little condition thing, and we're going to add a condition, and here's where the magic of this cognitive services comes in. We will choose the score here, and it says here, the score above 0.7 is positive, and the score below 0.3 is negative. So the score is greater than 0.7, and we'll add an action, and then we're going to choose Twitter, and then we'll get it to retweet. Now, one of the things you'll notice here is it doesn't have the option to retweet, which is a good thing probably, but there's no retweet option. So you'd put it into your Slack group or your Teams group, and you'd go forward with that. All right, so we'll press save, and that's kind of cognitive services done. And we have essentially put AI into our Logic app. We've done it without any programming really, apart from a condition. We've reduced those tickets by 90% because the text analytics service can detect the sentiment. And there's heaps and heaps and heaps of these API choices. This is the main thing that I would recommend you start learning so you know all the services out there for cognitive services. You've got to be careful for sarcasm if someone's obviously tweeting and saying, hey, isn't it fantastic that northwind.com is down, or that type of stuff. You've got to be careful. And so you've got to do your ALI testing. All right. I give this, now I can do AI award. And once you've done that, you could really put AI on your LinkedIn profile, okay? Because you may as well brag, I'm now doing AI stuff. Talking about smart people, Donald Trump says, sorry, losers and haters, but my IQ is one of the highest and you all know it. Please don't feel so stupid or insecure. It's not your fault. So this is an unmodified tweet. Obviously a smart dude, and he's probably already using a lot of AI services himself. So let's move forward. Bots. Bots are really good. I've been working for many years on the wife experience, to give my wife a good experience. And these days, I talk a lot about customers and giving customers a good experience. And you know how we talk about DevOps all the time in our world? Marketing people talk about customer experience all the time. And they talk about the journey from the start, when the customer first hears you, all the way through to when the customer leaves you, and trying to smooth out those harsh bumps. And usually the harsh bumps come when you get called and stuff like that. So this customer experience is covered by a lot. I have a whole talk on this. It's an hour and a half long, and it goes all about customer experience. But the best way to give customer experience is let them contact you any way they want and be responsive. Very, very expensive to implement. And so the way to try to make this cheaper is bots. In Australia, we have what we call the welfare system. We call it the dole. Anyone getting that? You don't brag about it because you're called a dole bludger. They're usually New Zealanders. No? That's cool. We have that. I assume you can get rich in Norway from, what do you call it? What's it called here? No? You don't have it? NAV. All right. And someone that's on the NAV, what are they called? And what? A NAVA. All right. So a NAVA. So you don't want to be a NAVA, but you want to give the NAVAs a good experience. I hope that's not a bad term. And so what we have now is our DHS, or our NAV system. You can go in there and they've got all these bots that are answering questions. There's probably only one question to answer. When am I getting my money? But yes, so that is, even in services like that, you're improving the customer experience. So a bot is just an app where you interact with in a conversational way. And you can just say, hey, what can you do? And it says, well, I can help you with your insurance needs, whether you're in the market for a new auto or home policy, needing a claim. So it's basically any question. Now, where do the answers come from? The answers come from your knowledge bases and the way you structure your data. So the Gartner Group estimates that by 2020, we're going to speak to chatbots more than we speak to our spouses. That's a real stat. So we want to take advantage of that, and we've got rid of 90% of the work. We can get rid of the last 10%, we can get rid of 90% of that as well, because most of the questions are repetitive. How do I change my password? How do I do this? How do I do that? So you want to interact with your backend service efficiently, and the way you do that is you can use this Q&A Maker, a service from Microsoft. And so you go in, and this is the UI. You go create a knowledge base, and you enter some details. You go through the same story, and then you choose the location, and then the app name. You go through, and then we will have that published. You come back to this page, enter the rest of the details, and you put in the location of your services. So in this sample that I give you with the PowerPoints, there's a bot about bots. Any question you have about bots, it will answer, because it's just in this format of question, answer, which you would mostly have in your organizations. Even PDFs, you can put your PDFs in. So you populate that, it spins around, and then you've got this all automatically generated, all in a couple of minutes. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll press test, and then you'll type in, here's the guts of where you'd start testing every question that you could ask this thing. Where can I get training about bots? And it pulls it up from the data you've given it. The course is a few years old, but this covers everything in detail. That's the whole guts of it all. Alrighty, cool. So I just want to talk about, I'll just summarize with that. Everyone is in this space. For example, Zendesk, they give you a bot, but every time that the customer says, after they answer it for you based on your data, it will say, were you happy with that answer? They say yes, and you get charged $1, all right? So that's kind of how they're all trying to own this space. So you can seriously improve your customer experience and reduce your costs by using bots. And I think that's really, really important. And that service is a really nice one, okay? The only important thing you've got to be aware of when you implement bots in your company is try to make it fail over to a real person as soon as they say, that didn't give me what I'm after. That's the important thing. But you can reduce most of it. All right, so the verdict of bots. Finally, someone can understand me award, okay? And you're talking to people the way they want to talk. Now, Donald Trump doesn't have any tweets about bots, but what I did discover is that he had his Twitter account retweeted 500,000 times. And I'm going to guess that wasn't automatic. So he's probably using a bot. He's probably already a customer of Azure, okay? And that's how he's doing it all. All right, so the final thing I want to tell you about is containers. And containers are huge. I'm going to tell you they're not ready for Jason. Jason's not ready for containers just to get going. But what you do want to do with that site, remember I said you don't want to manage infrastructure? As soon as you're dealing with containers, you're managing a lot. It's hard. I'll give you the executive summary. Creating a Docker container is easy. Managing all that with Kubernetes is really hard, okay? But if you want to manage it with Microsoft's AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, or it's now called Azure Container Services, but it's still AKS, that makes managing all your containers easy, all right? So Docker's easy, Kubernetes is complicated, but AKS makes it all easy. So, and that is where you'll be investing stuff in the future. I do want to just tell you something really cool. You'll go through this whole thing and you'll have your Kubernetes set up, and you'll have, in this case, I've got 5 pods and everything's good. But you'll have to learn about Docker files and these things called Helm charts. And let me tell you, they're nothing to do with Helm, and there's no charts inside them. Okay? They just came up with this weird name so that they keep with this navigation nautical theme. It's really stupid. But anyway, just think they probably didn't want to call them cool infrastructure descriptions or something. But that's what they are. They're just your infrastructure descriptions as code files. What you want to do is you want to automate creating your container images and deploying them. So you want to automate creating and deploying. That's what we need. I don't want Jason to use it because there's just so much in there. Okay. What Microsoft should do is when I go File New in Visual Studio, create all the stuff that I need so I don't need to know what Kubernetes is. And I just want to hit publish and it just publishes it to the containers. That's what I love. Okay. 2 days ago, Microsoft announced we're getting this. So when you go File New in Visual Studio, see these charts, these Helm charts, and see your Docker file down there, or all automatically put into your Visual Studio project. Is that cool? All we now need is an easy way to deploy it. And now on the right-click menu, you see Publish to Azure's AKS. So I think I might change my mind now. This might be ready for Jason. So in summary, it's free. Now, by the way, Microsoft are heavily investing in Kubernetes. The old Microsoft would have gone and made their own version of Kubernetes, Service Fabric. But now they're really investing in this. It's very simple to manage, but I want you to be aware it's not really free because there's a lot of time to invest. You've got to pay for the infrastructure, the VMs, but Kubernetes is free. Okay, so you will never, ever hear it works on my server, my machine, whatever, again, because we're talking about the identical piece of hardware or the identical container. Donald J. Trump said, "I'm a genius, but even I find containers difficult. Don't use Amazon's because they don't pay their taxes. Use Azure's AKS for Kubernetes. Easy." All right? Now, you're not sure if that's real or not because I put a spelling mistake of Kubernetes in there just to make it even realer. Okay. So, in summary, I think that in the next 12 months, you are going to start spending a lot of your time just making existing apps smarter by removing code and calling Azure services or other people's services that add value to your app. I think you'll be doing a lot more research into machine learning and AI stuff. Your apps are going to be brainier and they're going to be easier to learn, easier to use and make less mistakes and have more validation. And then you're going to be deploying them with containers. I think that's the way of the future. What do other people say outside 12 months? We have no idea. Elon Musk says plenty about it. He says it's going to create an immortal dictator which we can never escape. He says it's just like if we're building a road and an anthill just happens to be in the way. We don't hate ants. We're just building a road. So goodbye, anthill. He's meaning goodbye, humans, with all that. Anyway, there's this documentary, and in the documentary he says, how long do we have? And his answer is, 5 years. What's left to do on your bucket list? And Stephen Hawking was asked about this, and his answer was, success in creating effective AI could be I obviously can't translate his voice, could be the biggest event in the history of our civilization. So he says it could be awesome, or the worst. And then he says, we just don't know. Okay? Mark Zuckerberg was asked, and he said, I'm really quite optimistic. There's people that are naysayers trying to drum up these doomsday scenarios. I don't really understand it. And then Elon Musk says, he doesn't understand much. All right. So anyway, it's all fun and games. We'll see where it goes. There's plenty of resources out there on all this stuff, and the ND site is going to be amazing with so much cool stuff. In summary, let me just give you the executive summary. App services, easiest way to create stuff. DevOps, I wouldn't do a project without DevOps. Any new project should be using DevOps. Data, please try to choose Cosmos DB for your next project if it's appropriate. Security, can't go wrong with Microsoft. API management, I would never not use this one. I think it's the crown jewels. Logic apps, my mum can use that one. Cognitive services is AI made easy for programmers. It's really easy to use AI. Bots is the best way that you can help your company improve their customer experience. And containers is how we should be deploying. So remember I told you there's a lot to learn in Azure, and we've kind of gone through just 9 pieces of it. And it was getting even hairier. And this one, well, I was just screwing with you. I just took the same image and put it there 4 times. But really, if you do get outside the Microsoft world and you see the whole cloud landscape, it is enormous. It really is enormous. Hopefully, we will get more journeys like this from Microsoft that tell us exactly how they, want developers to kind of to learn. There's my suggestion to Scott. So hopefully he gives us a little bit more of that, and then we won't need talks like this. How's the future? Are you going to choose Azure or AWS in a few years' time? Which one will you choose? Well, I don't know which one you'll choose, but I'm pretty sure you'll choose the one that has the best AI engine. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it comes out of China with Ali Cloud or Tencent Cloud or one of those. Thank you. business cards or brochures if you want to.